All right, we are live. I think we're live. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another GM Philosophy Coffee Break. I'm drinking my Rockstar today. I'm pretty tired today. Pretty tired because I've been watching shows at night. Probably too much. I've been watching shows too late. But we have a pretty good topic to talk about today. Really interesting. I got to bring up my notes here to make sure I get this right. I'm going to read this for you. Now, the way that I have been doing these lives is basically I kind of give the topic and then I kind of give my little 2 cents on it. And then what I like to do is I like to invite everyone in the comments to drop their ideas, drop their thoughts, and then I want to go through and read those. And so we can get the collective wisdom of the chat going in the video. So now in my Discord group, which the link to the Discord is pinned in the comment thread. You should join my Discord if you haven't already. If you like Discord at all, at least stop by and say hi. There's also a link to my free ebook, The Ultimate Plot Randomizer, so you can join my email list, grab that, join my email list, and then you'll get it in an email, so make sure to do that. With that being said, here is the topic. I'm just going to say hi real quick. John, how's it going? John Garrick's in here, Profit Roll. How's it going, guys? Really good to see you. It's Wednesday, isn't it? Yeah, heck yeah, it is. Happy Wednesday. All right, so here we go. This is what, and I'm not going to give their name or anything, but this is what the comment said. The last D&D session I ran, I had a problem player, a bard. Now, this is interesting to me because I'm playing a bard. I'm playing Lawful Evil Grum, Isaac, and Williams campaign, Dungeons and 20s, shout out. But anyway, so this is of particular interest to me. Anyway, I had a problem player, a bard, derail the entire session. He'd made some difficulties in the past, e.g. using suggestion to steal basically the most valuable sword in the kingdom where the party is working from, which I'd be fine with, except the owners of the sword are also the employers of the party, so that's another derail waiting to happen. A similar situation occurred again in the last session. Bard was bored and looking at memes on his phone. When the party arrived to a tavern to get a quest from a warlock, the bard waited for the rest of the party to leave and then used basically every single one of his second level spells to finally get the warlock to give up his Book of Shadows, Pact of the Tome. And then the rest of the session was a chase scene, followed by both the bard and the warlock getting locked up in jail for the night for fighting in the streets. Any advice on how to smooth out the chaos? Okay, so this is a really challenging one and a good one. And chat, please feel free to drop your comments on this, drop your ideas in here so we can get the collective wisdom of the chat in this video. But so here's right away, I have a couple different things to say. First of all, I know that suggestion can be a very powerful spell in 5e, and I don't have it right in front of me. I'll look it up online. But suggestion basically lets you use up to 25 characters to make a suggestion to a character. And then if they fail their wisdom save, they basically have to go through with it. There are some minor stipulations, but for example, I've used it in a Colosseum fight to target an enemy and cause the enemy to drop their weapons and flee from the Colosseum. And then by the time they realized what was going on and came back, the fight was already over. So, basically used it to neutralize an enemy. But it is a concentration spell, so you have to maintain concentration. So that's like the drawback of suggestion, but as a second level spell, it's relatively powerful, and it could be used to troll high key. With that being said, I want to just address some of these things in general. So first of all, a player using suggestion to steal things, whatever. So right away, it's like, okay, that's probably going to happen, right? But what I want to talk about is it's also important to realize that as the GM, you probably are going to have some repercussions for that. And it's also fair to think about, okay, if there is a sword that is the most powerful weapon in the kingdom or whatever, then the owner of that sword is probably going to have safeguards against just letting people grab it. They're probably not going to, if they're so powerful or so influential that they're going to walk into a room, they have the most powerful sword in the kingdom, or very valuable weapon, very valuable magic item. What are the odds that that person's actually going to go in there alone? They might have several guards with them. They may have magical defenses against people using magic on them. I one time ran a campaign where the players started interacting with some very, very high level clerics for this like god like entity that was trying to take over the world. And I homebrewed a device that was like I called it a necklace of spell or an amulet of spell protection. And it was like an amulet that had a one-time reactive use where anytime someone tried to cast a spell on them at all, there would just be a flash and the spell would be countered. Didn't matter what the spell was, literally didn't matter. No spell could break through this. So the first spell they always casted on these guys would always just flash out. And they were basically a protective mechanism to keep the cleric safe. Players learn very quickly to first magic missile and then use their real spell on the clerics. But it was just like a protective measure. So there are going to be probably protections you're going to want to brainstorm in your world to keep players from just running over at mayhem, because a level 4, level 5, level 6 player shouldn't be able to steamroll your whole like campaign. They shouldn't be able to steamroll a castle, shouldn't be able to steamroll a town guard. They are exceptional, but they're not all powerful. And so, you just want to think to yourself, there are probably thieves like this who are trying to mess with these people all the time. What defenses have they put up to make it not worth the thief's time? So this is a little bit of a prep work thing, but another thing is repercussions. If a player uses suggestion on someone, first of all, when suggestion wears off, that person's probably going to be mad because they know they got suggested. It's very similar to charm. People know when they've been charmed. These are risky spells to run because you have to assume that once it wears off, they are not going to be your friend. People don't like to have their will manipulated and controlled. It's sort of like, it's not so different from you think you're going out on a date with someone and then they drop a pill in your drink, and then later on you think to yourself, or you realize, oh my gosh, they drugged my drink. You're not going to be their friend after that. They were trying to be sneaky. They were trying to do something bad to you. They were trying to manipulate your will. So that's why, like my bard character, he never uses these types of spells on anyone he wouldn't be perfectly okay with having a fight with. He has met very many high level characters in this campaign, and he could have maybe tried to use suggestion on them, but he knows if he messes up, they're going to draw that fancy sword and they're going to kill him, because that's basically a declaration of war when you're trying to charm someone. Like, it's just, it may not be a lethal spell, but it's a spell that no one's going to be okay with being used on them if they have any standards or are capable of standing up for themselves. So as a GM, you might want to put those repercussions into place, and sometimes that might mean a lot of things get derailed. If they had a job working for that guy who had the sword, and then because of the bard's actions, this guy now hires 3 mercenary teams to go after these guys and just says, bring me back their heads. These guys have they have kindled my wrath. Now that's the direction of the campaign. Now they are on the run for mercenary groups. Maybe the rest of the players tie up the bard and they give him back. They say, look, we didn't want any part of this. Here, as a consolation, we will give you him, and he's gonna have to roll up a new character, I guess. But that those kinds of things. Those are some thoughts I have about that. Now, there's another thing, though, I want to talk about here. You made a point here. A similar situation occurred in the last session. Bard was bored and looking at memes on his phone. Okay, so this is such a hard thing. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to sound really negative or mean, but that sounds to me like a player who isn't actively engaging in your game. It sounds like a player who is basically treating your game like just one option for entertainment. And the minute they're not entertained, like they aren't directly getting the spotlight, they switch their attention away. To what percentage are players paying attention to the game? It should be pretty darn close to 100%. When I'm a player in a game, if it's not my turn, I don't get my phone and do this and that and blah, blah, blah. When it's not my turn, I am, paying attention to the game. I'm listening to what the GM says. I'm paying attention to the combat. I'm knowing everything that's going on. I'm trying my best to give 100% of my attention to the game because I want to be an engaged player. That's what a player should do. It would be weird if you as the GM suddenly just took 5 minutes out of running the game and just looked at memes on your phone. The players would feel very disrespected. You as a GM have a right to feel disrespected when players treat your game that way. Now, you get to decide to what degree you want to police that. I know some GMs who are super chill with that. Some GMs I've literally heard say, hey, I run very chill sessions. People will literally have 20-minute conversations with each other in the middle of the game, and then we'll just gradually get back to the game. Not much gets progressed, and I'm fine with it. I have heard GMs say this, but I've also been in groups where it was like no devices are allowed at the table. If you're going to pull out a device, you need to leave the room. And I have actually run that rule before. I don't do that nowadays, but there was a time in my gaming, my gaming hobby, like a timeline where I was like, if you pull out a device while you're at the table, like we're going to have a problem. You might either get a warning or you might be asked to not return to the group because I want to play with engaged players, right? Now, and you as a GM deserve engaged players. Now, I do understand it is hard to ask every single player to be 100% engaged all the time. We have to be reasonable. We want to be understanding. We don't want to just make it a fight. But we do deserve to stand up for ourselves. We deserve to have boundaries, and you deserve to enjoy the game too. And if the player looking at memes on their phone bothers you, that is not enjoyable. That doesn't count as you enjoying the game. That counts as a player doing something that is not cool with you. Just like they would probably not be cool with you just willy-nilly taking a break and looking at memes on your phone and the whole game stopping. They'd probably very quickly bounce on your game. Why? Because they come here expecting to play D&D. There's the social contract surrounding that. So I'm not super cool with that whole line. I don't think that's a good thing. And to be honest, if there was a player at my table who was obviously not paying attention and looking at memes, I would probably not invite them back, to be super honest. I might have a friendly conversation with them at first, be like, hey, look, I'm not trying to have a fight or anything, but this feels bad. This makes the game less enjoyable for me. I want everyone to be engaged. And if they won't get on that same wavelength, then it's like, well, I don't think it's going to work out. Now, I want to talk about one more thing here. When the party arrived to a tavern to get a quest from the warlock, the bard waited for the rest of the party to leave and then used basically every single one of his second level spells to finally get the warlock to give up his Book of Shadows, Pact of the Tome. And then the rest of the session was a chase scene, followed by both the bard and the warlock getting locked up in jail for the night for fighting in the streets. Okay, so right here you have a situation where basically it sounds like, now I have limited knowledge, but it sounds like on one hand you had the rest of the party was acting as kind of a cohesive group, and then you had a one-off player doing chaotic things, hence the question. Trying to steal this warlock's book. Okay. If I'm playing in a game and I think to myself, there's a very good chance that this course of action will take away gameplay from other players. It will derail the time balance. It's going to leave some players sitting for a while they're just watching this random situation go through. I'm not going to do it. I think it's a bad decision for a player to make. And the fact that the whole rest of the party left and that he pursued that course of action makes me think that, well, I think it's a he. I'm not actually sure if you said, oh yeah, his book. Okay. All right. I'm not actually sure if this player is a he or she. It doesn't really matter, but I'm calling him a he because I think that's what it was. The fact that he didn't take that into account and that he went ahead and did it, and then it sounds like resulted in a chase scene that probably the other players were just like not playing during. Like, it sounds like they left, and then there was a whole segment of the session that was just this player doing random chaotic things. So this is not a very cool way to play for a player either. And as a GM, it is very hard to police this kind of thing. It's very, very hard. I always try to the best of my ability to bring players back in if this starts to happen. So like, let's say that this was happening. He waits for them to leave and then starts talking to this warlock. The minute maybe they run out of the front door and the warlock's chasing him, I might go to the other players and say, hey, all of you roll a perception check. And I mean, if one of them rolls a 6, well, that will be high enough. And I'll say, you guys hear this wild commotion coming from the tavern. It sounds like that warlock is screaming and yelling out in the street. Do you guys want to return? Do you guys want to return and re-enter the spotlight so that I'm thinking to myself, so that you're not left sitting out this whole thing. That's one thing I try to do. So I kind of try to always give the party recourse to rejoin and get back together with each other, because it is legitimately not fun to have one player play for like 20 minutes and have everyone else just sitting there. So I always think that like that's sometimes hard to manage. You can't control what people are going to do. Unfortunately, you cannot cast suggestion on your player and make them do what you think they should do. With that being said, it is it's sometimes possible to help bring those things back together. But another thing would be, if he's fighting with this warlock, like, so right away I'm thinking, okay, maybe he succeeded doing this. This warlock is not his friend now. He is not his friend. Warlocks are dangerous people. They serve otherworldly, powerful beings. They are no stranger to dirty business usually. To me, I'm thinking, you know what? Unfortunately, now that this warlock has been put to this much trouble by this bard, guess what's going to happen? This warlock, the minute he's going to bribe the guards. He's going to get out of prison. He's going to go talk to his four most powerful friends. They're going to gather up all the goons they have, and those guys are going on a hunt for this bard. Like, there are in-game consequences of these things. The downside is that this does derail usually the plans of the rest of the group. The rest of the group sounds like wanted to go on this quest. Now, guess who's going to be waiting at the quest location? A whole bunch of goons who are instructed and hired by the warlock to beat up, possibly destroy, kill, loot, make disappear this bard and maybe anyone associated with him. This, what do the players think of this? In my games, player versus player equalization is not necessarily frowned upon. I hate to say this, but like, a couple turns in, if I realize one player is starting to really rub the rest of the party the wrong way, I'll stop them and I'll say, hey, listen, I'm just going to let you know. It is possible that if you continue down this road, it's possible that if the rest of the characters get frustrated enough, they might attack you or something. I'm just letting you know that is totally a possibility. So if you're okay with that risk and it's not going to upset you or something, then continue. But I'm just giving you a warning. I'm sensing some frustration. And I'll be honest, and maybe this is even me hinting a little bit. I would not be surprised, I'll be honest, if some of these players didn't decide to take matters into their own hands with your character. It wouldn't be personal. It's just in game. But if that would be a little difficult for you to deal with, you might want to think about, pulling back on the chaos and being a little more of a party player. I've had that conversation with players many, many, many times. And sometimes that gets them to kind of, get back under control. But sometimes the rest of the party turns on them. They get mad. They get mad because they caused chaos. And then they get mad that something was done about it. And then they don't come back. That has also happened sometimes. They kind of asked for it at that point. And at that point, it's kind of out of your hands. You can only do so much with players who won't play ball. The key is to talk about it and just try every step along the way toward disaster. You try to have a dialogue. You say, hey, listen, I just want you to let you know, going away from the party like this, blah, blah, blah. Hey, I just want to let you know, doing this is going to really, this will impact the rest of the group. They may not like that, blah, blah, blah. Hey, just so you know, this warlock might have powerful friends. You would know this. You would probably know there's repercussions, blah, blah, blah. Like, so it's like having having that dialogue as you go might be a way to get them to turn back and not be so chaotic. But anyway, all right. I feel like I've given my top ways that I would deal with that. I want to go to the comments. I want to see what you awesome people have said in these comments. Feel free to continue to drop comments. I want to get the wisdom of the group here. I would also like to hear what you think of what I suggested. Okay, so John says, sounded like classic power gamer behavior to me with a strong dose of main character syndrome. Not sure I would have allowed suggestion to talk a warlock out of his Book of Shadows. That's like talking a king out of his kingdom or a cleric out of following his deity. If it took multiple tries, why didn't the warlock attack a lot sooner? I agree with John, because the first time you fail a charm or a suggestion, it's done. They're not your friend anymore. It's like having a pill dropped in your drink. You see someone do it, it's like, what the actual hell? You just tried to drug my drink. We're not friends now. In fact, we are way, way beyond that. Now we are enemies. I kind of agree with John, and I don't know. To me, it would have been like, it would have turned real dark right there on the side, on the part of that warlock. But anyway, I'm trying to go through all of John's comments first. I'm just going to go down. John says, in my homebrew world, oh, that's a different comment. Let's go back up to the top, and we're going to go with Prophet. Oh, Prophet Roll said hello. Hello, Prophet Roll. Not a jester. What's good? Good to see you. Dr. Fibes, good to see you. Looking forward to gaming with you on Sunday. Idyllic This says, I appreciate the active response to my question. Hey, no problem. That's what the community is for. Prophet Roll says, I wanted to use suggestion to prevent them from harming an NPC while we sleep. But yeah, concentration put an end to that. Yes, that is the downside of suggestion. Otherwise, suggestion is actually a very powerful spell for second level spell. Not a jester, not a clown says, that one player, mom said it's my turn to covet all of the powerful artifacts. I understand. Derek says, if it had been intra-party, I would never have tolerated it. One warning only. That's fair. A lot of GMs have that policy. Idyllic Disc says, a mistake on my part. It's okay. We all make, it's a learning experience. Every mistake is also a great lesson. My video tomorrow that's going to come out is basically me talking all about a mistake I made during a combat at my Saturday game. So I've been running games for 20 years, still not perfect yet. Not a jester, not a clown says, I had some kind of medicine ad. Oh, Garrick says, Whataburger ad. Got to get that coin. Got to get that coin. Support the channel. Prophet Roll says, the Warlock's patron could always step in. That is true and very scary. When a Warlock patron gets mad enough and their attention is focused enough to step in, that is bad news for everyone, even for the Warlock. But here's the thing. They are way more likely to step in than a cleric deity because they have so fewer followers. They have more focused, usually more focused goals. And usually the warlock is a bigger part of their plan than a cleric is of a deity's plan. So high key, actually dangerous. Yes, Prophet Roll's exactly right, I think. John says, in my homebrew world, mind-altering magic is very illegal in most civilizations. That bard would have been bound, gagged, and locked away for a very long time. That is very fair. And then repeat offense would have his tongue and hands removed, roll up a new character. No, that's pretty much true. I've had characters go to the fantasy equivalent of the psych ward and been rendered blind and have their tongues removed for casting spells that basically were considered detrimental to society. This happens. In a magical fantasy setting, one has to understand that the authorities are going to take action to suppress the use of magic that disrupts law and order. Dr. Fibes says, you're right on GMP. So many in-world consequences for trying to pull any actions that are problematic. Also, him watching in boredom, just trying to throw a wrench. Come on, get in the game. I agree. It's dirty. The player should have done better than that. John says, yeah, shouldn't that book become a mundane object once removed from the warlock? I'm not actually sure, but I'd have to look at the lore, but that's very possible. I think the special thing about it is that the warlock's relationship with the patron, that bond is what makes it important, I think. I'd have to go read it to be specific, to specifically check. Not a jester, not a clown says, would be awesome if the book was sentient and took him into a Lovecraftian shadow realm. That's another thing. Sentient weapons, sentient items, way more dangerous usually. Sometimes you get a hold of a magic item you think is going to be awesome. Turns out that magic item just got a hold of you and you are the perfect puppet to do its will. This has happened in my campaigns more than once. Dr. Five says, why wasn't the warlock pummeling this troll? Idyllic Disc says, my current plan to solve this mess is to, one, have warlock bargain. Okay, so Idyllic Disc is the one who posted this. So I'm going to go ahead and just say that because it's obvious in the comments. So here's what Idyllic Disc is saying as we talk about this. My current plan to solve this mess is to, one, have the warlock bargain with his patron to teleport the Book of Shadows back to him, since this is an actual feature of the pact ability. That's very fair, yeah. John says, there's a sentient book in my campaign. Pretty sure that book can take on most characters one-on-one. It only gets stolen if it wants to get stolen. Yes, so there are items like that out there. Idyllic Disc says, part 2 of the plan. The bard gave his gear to one of the other players after being arrested, and an extremely valuable sword was included in that gear. So it's possible that it's found. That's true. You know, you can also always like talk to the players about that. Like the one player, it's like, hey, listen, look, let's just be real about this. You find the sword in the bard's gear. You know that you guys having the sword causes XYZ problems. You know that returning the sword would do XYZ solutions, make your character look good, earn favor with that king, etc. Right? So if players understand that and you let them make their own choices, they might make choices that help to solve some of the chaos if they don't want pure chaos, right? Some players will maybe make it more chaotic, but some might want to actually try to solve the problem. Prophet Roll says, reminds me of the Tranquil from Dragon Age. I never played Dragon Age, actually. But anyway, with that being said, that is all the comments. And I think that is going to conclude this live. I'm going to call it there, make it short and sweet. This was a really good question. I really love questions like this. I love conversations like this. And I hope that everyone feels like they can post this kind of stuff more often in the Discord, because I love covering these things. And this isn't the awesome kind of thing to cover in a live, because I can talk through it and then we can get the collective wisdom of the what do they call that? A group of wizards, not a clan of wizards, not a cult of wizards. When you have a syndicate of wizards, there's a word for it. I'm not remembering the word. Group of wizards. When you have a group of very smart people to help solve a problem, throng. It's not a throng of wizards. I cannot remember. A cabal. There it is. When you have a cabal of very smart GMs here to solve the problem, we can solve the problem even better. Dr. Five says direct conversations are a must. How much time do we have to be that guy? I think that's very important. Direct conversations are very important. Conclave. That's another good word. Conclave. Heck yeah. All right. That's going to be it for this one. Hey, thank you all so much for joining me for the coffee break. I will see you all at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning with another video release, and tomorrow at 1 for another coffee live. Roll some D100s for me, and I will talk to you later. And Idyllic Disc, make sure you let us know how it turns out. I hope we get a part 2 to this. All right. Talk to y'all later.